But even worse, I feel like relationship content is now pressuring women to accept craziness and stupidity because of the fear women have surrounding being single. Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you are all doing well. Today I'm going to be addressing some of the hot questions which have been coming to my mind, and some of you have actually asked me, which I have needed time to really think about concerning relationships and stuff like that. Anyway, so recently some of you really loved the video where I talked about how to make the most use of being unmarried, childless, single, basically, and young, you know, living it out. And I have made a lot of singleness content here on my channel because your girl's been single for a long time. Okay, but I literally started making singleness content on my channel mainly because it felt like there was a bit of, you know, a pedestaling, or an idolatry, if you will, or an obsession with relationships, especially when it came to, you know, being a young woman and just desiring to be with someone. And I was just irked by how much that was linked to, you know, self-esteem and value, and how much people would shame women, or how much shame women would feel about the fact they may have never been in a relationship before, or, you know, the fact that they were waiting for a good partner and maybe someone hadn't come along in a while. And I'm not saying this because it's, you know, something that shouldn't affect women, because I do think loneliness, the desire to have a partner, the desire to feel desirable is something that most women are going to feel at some point, because of just how much our beauty, self-worth, and our futures are attached to the right partner, and having somebody who actually wants to be with us and build a life with us, should that be something you actually want. And so many women feel as though that is something they have to have and something that they should want. And I've realized some people don't want that, and also some people don't really achieve it in the timelines that society set for us. And I think there is so much pressure just surrounding women to be in relationships that sometimes it causes us to overlook some of the most important things when it comes to relationships. And that was like 7 years ago, 7 years ago when I started making that content. And now I'm older, time has passed, a lot of that has not changed, even though some societal views have. But even worse, I feel like relationship content is now pressuring women to accept craziness and stupidity because of the fear women have surrounding being single. And I personally think that that's moved on for me from being problematic to now being downright dangerous, right? And I want to talk about that on my channel. I want to not necessarily glamorize being single, but I feel like singleness has kind of had a bad rap, and it shouldn't, because people associate being single with being lonely. And it's like, you don't have, I'm sure you've heard that, you know, being alone isn't the same as being lonely. But I think so many women fear ending up alone that they end up accepting things which they really shouldn't accept. And I think the issue here is an idolatry of marriage, and this kind of misconception that people have and people push, that marriage is going to solve all of your issues and it's going to ultimately fulfill you in life. Not only do I feel like that's just a damn right lie, I feel like it creates this false image and inevitably sets women up for disappointment when they do finally get married or in a serious relationship and their partner is not perfect and they are not completely happy. And I think it's important for us to create realistic expectations and let people know what it is they are signing themselves up for, not only so that they can, you know, adjust their thinking, but also so they can adequately prepare and they don't put these unrealistic standards and pressures on somebody else, but also on themselves as well, to have the perfect relationship or the perfect partner, when oftentimes that's not how life unfolds. Even if you got your dream job is not going to be completely perfect all of the time. You're going to go through struggles, you're going to go through obstacles. It's not, you know, this perfectly packaged gift. It is work, and relationships are also work. Fruitful work, rewarding work when you're doing it with the right person and you're doing it well. But it's not this, you know, amazing sign of, hey, you're the perfect person, you deserve a relationship. And sometimes I find that it's framed that way. But even worse, sometimes I think a lot of the content surrounding it makes it seem that a woman's only use is to be married. That the right way for a woman to use her life is purely to dedicate it to being a wife and being a mother. And I want to be careful with this, because I'm not saying these are not fulfilling pursuits or these are not, you know, valuable things. all of us have mothers, right? Whether they were good, they were bad, we came into this world through a woman. And it's amazing to know that a woman's body can do that. And so many people benefit from having wives, mothers, and having women in their lives who are present and nurture them and care for them. But I don't think that's all that we are called to, especially considering we don't come out of the womb with somebody in our womb, right? And I think it's important to remind ourselves that we get to be individual people with individual callings. And one of those things, or two of those things, can be to be a wife, it can be to be a mother, but that isn't ultimately all that we are if that's not what we desire for ourselves. I think so many women kind of focus on getting their life started when these two things come, that every other thing, like being a friend, working well, maybe starting that business, leading that vision, becomes secondary, and it becomes almost a consolation prize and something they use to distract themselves. And I think less women are, thinking like that in our day and age, but I think society still and cultures still want to force women into that way of thinking. And to me, I think it's just why. It's 2023, babes. Move, advance. Read a book. But I think so many people struggle with that because it feels like, we lose control over women's choices. I think another reason why I make singleness content, and I've been pondering on this because for me, I'm just kind of like, Courtney, are you dragging this out at this point? Like, we get it, you're single, you need to make the most of your singleness. But I've realized that a lot of women's self-esteem and their identity is linked to their relationship status. And sometimes that can make women overlook certain toxic behavior. And for me, I want to encourage women, not just through my singleness content, but through all the content that I make, through all the work that I do, to feel empowered enough and confident enough and also equipped to live the life that they actually want. I want them to live a life where they know they have options and where they actually have opportunities to be able to exercise that choice. And I want them to be able to do this because I want them to have expectations. I want them to have hope. I want them to have a standard which they set for their lives in general, for themselves, but also consequently their partners. And I think allowing women to have expectations and standards highlights to them what they should or should not tolerate. And one thing that has always been, I don't really talk about it much on my channel, and I don't know when I'll talk about it in my life, but something that's very close to my heart and something I really care about is making sure that women don't experience abuse. And I've realized that a lot of women stay in situations which are toxic, even abusive, because they don't feel like they have options. They don't feel empowered. They don't feel confident to be able to live independently. They aren't surrounded by community. They don't know what their options are. And society has so tied their identity to their marital or their relationship status that they feel as though they cannot break free from something that is literally killing them and their future and the vision and calling that resides within them, because it is taboo, or because it will bring them shame, or because people will look at them as if they were less than a woman or less of a woman and they were less valuable. And I see it play out oftentimes in religious communities or traditional cultures where, because we do value the family unit, that we think women are the be all and end all to whether a family unit actually thrives and survives, forgetting that they are building a family unit with a leader. They are building a family unit with somebody who they're in partnership with. And oftentimes they are the ones held accountable for whether that family unit survives, and the other person isn't held to a standard which would create an environment for the family unit to thrive. And I want women to be able to recognize for themselves whether this is a situation they actually want to stay in, and know if it's something that doesn't actually allow them to be safe and to thrive, they can leave and they can actually stand independently, but also they are surrounded by a community and a societal structure which supports their independence and their freedom. And I think so many women, there are so many institutional issues, there are so many interpersonal issues which go into whether women stay in, bad situations and abusive situations. And I think we need to do more to be able to lay the groundwork to make sure women's mindsets are changed, to make sure that societally women are actually supported, but to also make sure that we ourselves are not projecting or perpetuating these problematic views onto women, making them feel as though they are stuck should they end up in a bad situation. And that's another reason why we really need to call out this BS content on the, feminine energy, high value man, high value woman, which is really distorting what it is that we expect and accept from a relationship, especially when it violates trust, it violates boundaries, and it just encourages people to want to seek control and power within a relationship. And even worse, even makes relationships purely transactional and removes the responsibility of care and the duty of care we have to the people who we say we love. Which is why focusing on something like friendship and women actually having community and friends around them who don't benefit from them, financially, or don't benefit from them sexually, but actually just want to be there for them and enrich them through their love and their nurture, is important for us as women, because we need to know that relationships aren't all about give and get. They are actually about journeying with each other, recognizing each other's intrinsic value, and just genuinely wanting to care and be a companion. And we all need it. We all need people in our lives who want to see the best for us and who will help and support us to get to that place, and even be able to call out when we cannot see a bad situation because we are so blinded by love and our desire to have a ring or a family, or to not break a family unit. Now, another very interesting question I get asked when it comes to this whole, enjoying your season of singleness thing is, do you think that when you get to a certain age, your view will change because of your biological clock? Or do you ever get scared that, the TikTok on your biological clock will actually run out or strike that number where it's like, girl, you can't have kids? And genuinely, I hear it. I get why people ask that question. And honestly, I actually think it's a very valid question. And I can only speak from my personal experience, which is being my age. I can't talk about being older. I can't necessarily speak on what that feels like because I'm not in that position. And also part of me hopes that I won't be. And that's just me being fully transparent, because I think a lot of people watch this content and they think, oh, this content is static and it doesn't necessarily exist in a specific moment in time, which is my particular life, but it's just kind of a universal timing for everyone. But that's not true. That's not really how content should be perceived, in my opinion. I think it's important to remember that I am talking about these things from my perspective based on my life experience, which is of a 26-year-old babe. Most of that content, or most of the content I've made so far, has been me being 25 and under, so in my early 20s. And I know that so many different women have different experiences, which is why I think it's important to not just rely on one voice, my voice, but actually to listen to women with different experiences. Someone who I've loved to read the story of is Vold, who is like my online big sis, my auntie on YouTube, who's absolutely amazing. But she got married at like 40. She had a kid at like 50. It's important to be able to hear other people's voices, but also I think it's also valid to hear women's voices who are like, I don't like being single at 35, I don't like being single at 39, I am scared. And women are allowed to have diverse stories, they're allowed to have diverse opinions. This is just mine, right? This is my experience, and I really encourage women to share more of their thoughts respectfully if it's going to be in my comments, but also to create your own content or to share your experiences with the women in your life, which shares your perspective and what it is that you have been through and how you felt about what it is that you have been through, in order to give them insight into the choices that they are making, whether it is to wait, whether it is to, enjoy singleness for a bit before they really date with intention, or whether it is to not get married and have kids at all, or whether it's to do all of that really young. Just have conversations. Our experiences as women are not monolithic, right? We are all going through different things. We come from different cultural backgrounds. We have different religions and faith standpoints. We have all these different external factors and different biological conditions, right? As somebody with polycystic ovarian syndrome, the way I, think about my fertility and the plans that I make towards it are personal to me. And I think it's important to think about how these external pressures will impact our perception of time and whether time is actually running out. Like I said, my situation is unique to me, and this channel is about my unique experiences, so I'm going to share that. But don't take my, words as Bible. Listen to other women's experiences as well, and take their advice with a pinch pinch of salt. Take my advice with a pinch of salt. And I think this is a danger of the internet. You watch something and you live your life according to it, forgetting that the person who made the content will be adjusting their life as in real time, you know? And so watch my content, but remember the context. I'm 25, 26, living in London. I've got a really good, you know, well-paying career. I have an educational background. I have the disposable income to be able to travel, all of these privileges, right? But also I have my culture, I have my faith, I have my heritage, I have all of these things which inform my personal decision making, and it will impact the way I navigate through the world. And you need to think about all of these things. You need to think about, you know, your economic status, your dreams, your unique calling, what it is you want for your personal life, not what you're being influenced to want, not what you're being told to want, but what you actually want, and having the confidence to pursue that, and knowing where to get the information, and making sure you do get the information to be able to build the life that you want. And also know you're a big girl. You got to accept the consequences of that too. But also you need to prepare to be able to mitigate those consequences and circumstances too. So that also goes to say, I don't need anybody watching my womb, and I also don't need anybody watching your womb. Okay? Yeah? Let's all mind our own wombs. Yeah, I like that. And the last thing which I find really, really interesting is oftentimes I am asked about dating as a plus size and dark skin woman. So if you guys don't know, your girl has some curves to her. Yeah, I'm a plus size babe, have been for the majority of my life. Yeah. And honestly, fat phobia is something which is pretty much structural and institutional at this point. But also you're dealing with things like people's preferences, cultural preferences, cultural beauty standards as well, digital beauty standards and the culture of the internet, and just how that impacts our self-image as women and our body image as well. And as somebody who has, you know, oftentimes not been the cultural norm, or not been, you know, the ideal body standard or the ideal beauty standard, I've had to really go on that journey of building my own confidence, falling in love with the way that I look. And I can talk more about that, like how to build confidence when you are like an outlier, or you are somebody who is being told, you know, you're not desirable constantly. You know, there are other parts of me that some people may look at and be like, no, you are, you know, conventionally pretty or whatever. I know everyone, like I said, because it's so like subjective to where you are, your background, the culture you're living in, the time you're living in, the different trends that exist, blah, blah, blah. Everyone may view it differently. But from me and my personal experience, I will say that I have been an outlier, being someone who, you know, lives in the UK and is dark skinned. I'm 6 foot tall as a woman, and I am plus size. Has that affected my dating experience? Absolutely, right? And one thing I will never do through any of the conversations I have or the content that I make is lie. I will not deceive, all right? I know we can say, oh, be confident, but is it going to affect your dating prospects? Maybe, because you're not the conventional type. However, that does not mean that somebody who would want you at your most confident, at your most happy, whatever that looks like to you, right, does not exist. And I think sometimes that's what the internet creates an illusion of, that somebody who would want you does not exist. Nobody wants you. That's not true. The thing that I think has helped me navigate the dating street so far is I've only entertained people who actually want me. Okay, who want what I look like. And I've worked on myself to know that I am at my most confident. And I think it's important to know what that is for you. And as you guys know, I've been on a weight loss journey, and I've had many conversations with friends in my real life who, you know, we've come to the conclusion, yeah, if we were skinnier, if we were a bit slimmer, but if we were in between that like slim, thick to like curvy place, we would have way more suitors, right? But also we then think to ourselves, how does that affect our health? Number one. Number two, is that what we actually want? Does that affect our self-esteem, knowing that? And how do we practically move forward? And for some of us, the conclusion is, I'm going to lose weight. For others of us, it is, okay, I'm going to, you know, have to explore a smaller dating pool. For some of us, it's both. Like, it is both at the same time. All of these things are really complex. And I've realized that the greatest thing is, yes, become confident. Yes, work on yourself. Yes, dress you know, the body that you have. But most importantly, date people who actually want to date you in real life, not on the internet where everyone has a mic and wants to chat. In real life, people date their preference. And even if that preference is narrow. You can actually find the people who want to date you, whether that's through the online, dating situation, finding yourself in maybe a different country or a different landscape. I know it's extreme, but sometimes desperate times, desperate measures, okay? Finding yourself in a different place to date people who actually want you, but also just making sure that you're dating someone who actually wants you and not trying to force yourself on anybody, but also not allowing other people to force their preferences onto you, right? I think so many people outline, oh, I want this, I want that, I want this. It's fine, you can have your preference, just know that your preference isn't me. And I think it's important to not shape your partner and try and force somebody to fit into your preference. They're not for you, bro. Like, it's okay, they're not for you, sis. Like, it's all right. Really and truly, become someone who you're really happy with, and then date people who want to be with that version of you, in my opinion. IMO. That's the way I've been navigating things. And let's see how that works out. But yeah, I just wanted to come and kind of answer these questions. And obviously in a 20-minute video, I can't explore all of the nuances that, impact these things, but I do think they do make very interesting conversation starters. So I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments, and hopefully I can make more videos bouncing off of, the thoughts that I shared, the things that I read and discover, as well as my own self-reflection, which address these and help us really build confidence, and help us navigate being single or being in relationships with as much wisdom and optimism as well as sobriety, as possible. So if you enjoyed this video, if you want to hear more stuff from me, then check out my channel, maybe even subscribe and join the online family, all right? I will talk to you very, very soon. And as always, stay beautiful and stay blessed. Mwah.